or products that were inconsistent in dosage. Hi, my name is Brandon, and over the past year, the Delight Cafe team and I have traveled across the U.S. researching this rapidly growing industry of CBD products. What we have found throughout the industry were products that were inconsistent in dosage and used ingredients that weren't even lab tested. Products with chalky textures, bitter aftertaste, and worst of all, confusion among the CBD consumers. That's why we created Delight Cafe. A 15 milligram, lab-tested, all-natural, water-soluble hemp CBD powder pack. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Add it to your favorite drink of choice, wherever, whenever, on the go. Quickly find your calm, your balance, and your delight when you need it most.
Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? This is Dave Brown coming at you from the Victor Tango show. I'm here live right now. If you're watching us live, hello, how you doing? Send us a comment in the chat. Give us a hello, what's up? I want to start by wishing my beloved brothers and sisters in my beloved Marine Corps a happy 246th birthday. Hoorah! Semper Fi. Celebrate that birthday. Just a proud moment in our lives because we didn't do something that others can't, but we did because we chose to do it. So today is going to be a special show. Today we're going to just be hanging out. We're going to talk to a couple of Marine brothers. For the first hour, we're going to tell some war stories. We're going to giggle a little bit and make fun of each other. And the second hour, we're going to talk to some other friends that are in other branches of service or served in other branches of service. So we got some special guests for that as well. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to thank Brandon Croucher and Delight Cafe, our digital cafe, and also Delight CBD for sponsoring our show and having this channel for us so that we can get the word out and be able to have some fun on the air here and be able to spend some time talking to veterans and dealing with veterans issues. And we really appreciate that. My first guest today, you guys know him. He's my brother, Brian. I'm going to bring him on, and why don't we say hello to Brian?
What's up, Dave? I'm good. Semper Fi, brother. Happy birthday.
Semper Fi, happy birthday. How's things going for you today?
Man, they're going great. And, I got to say, you're looking pretty damn good for 246 years old.
I know. So are you, brother. So are you.
I'm trying.
I really have worked on my diet and working on my physical fitness. That's what's really helped. So for those of you who are watching, I am wearing black. I know, but it's a Raider hat. So Marine Raider hat, Raiders jersey, because I'm a Raiders fan, but I'm also a Raider. So just passing that along, passing that love. So hit us up with some comments, y'all. I see we got Mama Gotti saying hi. We got Danny G. Hey, yo, happy Veterans Day. We have Ilsa from South Africa. Hi, Ilsa. Danny G, thank you for your service. Mama Gotti, hi, Brian. Danny
hi, G. Mama G.
What's up, brother? And then John Hart, handsome fellas. Thank you. Thank you. Bob Seymour, Brian, and John Hart. Raiders suck. Whatever, John. Semper Fi. Happy Veterans Day, guys. Hoorah, Marines. So what I'd like to do today is I'd like to start just having some fun. Why don't we talk a little bit about our experiences when we were in the Marine Corps, since today is the day after the birthday, but we're having our celebration today. Brian, why don't you tell me a funny story of your boot camp when you went in? Let's hear the dates you went in, and then let's hear about that birthday, or about that boot camp.
Boot camp. Wow. I hadn't thought of a boot camp one. I went in January 16th of 89. I was in platoon 1009 Delta Company. And, I remember when we first got there, and you've got that first week where you're checking in and you have your, like they call it, what, the receiving drill instructors. And I couldn't believe it. It was so laid back. And I didn't know how all that worked. I thought, first drill instructors we saw were ones we were going to have. And then about 5-6 days into it, all of a sudden here comes this parade of real drill instructors, and they completely turn your world upside down. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll never forget that day. I was, I went into it the first few days thinking, oh, this isn't too bad. These guys are all right. They're nice guys. And then we got our real drill instructors, and as the old saying goes, life as you know it kind of changed a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. It gets a little crazy from there. For those of you that don't know this, you go your first, I want to say it's like 7 days or something like that, where you go through. It's actually receiving, where you come into the Marine Corps. You have the get on my yellow footprints, where you get off the bus and they tell you about the Marine Corps. They talk to you about the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is also known as the UCMJ. And then they march you through these doors, and you head in and you start being prepared, getting ready to be a Marine. So you get a haircut, you start filling out all your paperwork, just like you would if you're getting a regular job, except for the haircut part where they shave your head all the way down. But that's one of the funnest parts of boot camp. I thought, looking back on it, was looking around the room as we were getting ready to get our haircut. And, you had to have your eyes forward. You had to be real close to the person in front of you, but still trying to see others around you to see who had the longest hair, to see who would be losing their hair and how much of it was going to be gone, and then how funny looking they were once it was gone. I really appreciated that kind of a humor. You have any hippies in your group?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll never forget that. You go into this room and you're looking around, and you see all these individuals and different hair lengths and styles and all kinds of stuff, and then you get marched through the barbershop, and then the same people end up back in the same room, and you're looking around and you don't recognize anybody because you all look alike.
Right. Nobody looks different. Just different heights now and thicknesses, maybe a little bit different skin color, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm with you, brother. It's pretty hilarious when you get into that boot camp and breaking you down mentally. I mean, you're trying to make you all as one. One of the stories I have from boot camp is, we flew on an evening flight and got into San Diego. Sitting out in San Diego, they told us to go check in at the, the USO at the San Diego airport. So we go down there and check in, and they take our names, and we check in, and they check us off the list, and they go wait outside for your bus. They'll be here to pick you up. So me and a couple guys were like, yep, let's go have a cigarette while we wait for the bus. And so we're out there having a smoke and whatever, and all of a sudden the bus shows up, and we get on the bus, everybody's putting their cigarettes out. We're getting on the bus. And once that door closed, oh my God, it was hell on wheels. They just went to town on the whole drive from San Diego Airport to receiving at MCRD San Diego. Yes, I'm a Hollywood Marine. Yes, I do have sunglasses. And yes, the West Coast is the best coast. Just so you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was one of my funny stories was, getting on the bus, everybody's all jacking jaw and having a great time. And then you get down on the bus, and then it's serious time. Here we come. And the drill instructor is just all over you. So that was
I don't know how it is on Parris Island, but that is one of the cruelest things they could do if you're a Hollywood Marine is you're in boot camp and you're sitting out there going through all the stuff, and then you've got all these airplanes flying over your head, taking off, constantly landing, and you're just thinking, God, what did I do? I just want to be on one of those airplanes.
Ain't that the truth? Hey, look at here. It looks like my brother Robert's coming in. I'm going to bring in Robert. You know Rob Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Rob, you here?
Hey, what's up, Dave?
You
What's
here,
up, Ron?
brother? You're on the
What's up,
show.
Devil Dog?
How you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're talking about boot camp stories.
Yeah, we used to call it the Freedom Bird, as our DI used to call that when it was fucking flying over you.
Right?
While you're sitting there, you had your bunk looking right at the damn freaking runway and watching the birds just leave. So yeah, I remember that one.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Tell us one of your favorite stories from boot camp, Rob.
Boot camp was fun. I got to tell you that. The best one is because, let me see, when they drop you, it's at nighttime. So then when you're finally there, you're not sleeping for what was it, 3 to 4 days easily because you're constantly just doing something.
Yep.
And I still remember when they dropped us to our DIs and I was standing in formation. I must have took a nap because when I opened up my eyes, I had 5 fucking DIs just screaming at me. And then one ended up fucking choking me. Where they used to grab your little freaking button that was buttoned up and just start twisting it. So,
oh yeah,
those were some good old days.
Yeah, you weren't a Marine yet, so you couldn't have that button up and yet.
Oh no,
couldn't blouse your
boots or
camis,
anything.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So, that's crazy. The stuff that you remember from those days. I gotta read this one. David Olson, January 3rd, 1990, MCRD San Diego, Lima Company 3003. I didn't have a bowel movement for the first 6 days. Maybe doctor said it was due to a culture shock. Really? It's a culture shock?
Just a little.
So you go from telling mom and dad, screw you, to 3 or 4 DIs in your face. It's a culture shock. Just a little bit.
I think the best one, I got another story. You'll like this one. So we used to have God, I forgot the guy's name, but tall, skinny, dark green Marine. It was great. Same thing. He goes out to formation, one company formation, and his breath stunk. So I still remember into the squad bay, all the DIs grabbed the water bottle filled with Listerine and took turns telling him to open his mouth and freaking just unleashed hell on him. And I still remember he's just sitting there vomiting and everything. They're just still chewing his ass and still shooting the Listerine in his mouth. He learned, though. His breath was really refreshing afterwards. But
I'm sure his breath was fresh after that. I bet it's fresh to this day.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys ever have anyone in your platoon that got caught trying to actually smoke?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
My God.
Anybody that foolish.
We had a guy, he found a cigarette and he stashed a cigarette. He snuck out and tried to smoke it without getting caught. He got caught. I thought they were going to kill this guy, man. I've never seen another human being do that many push-ups and sit-ups before. Like 48 hours straight. I mean, if we weren't, en route doing something, doing drill, doing whatever, he was in front of the squad bay doing push-ups and sit-ups. 48 hours straight.
Dude, my dad was in the Marine Corps, went to boot camp, I want to say, it was between Korea and Vietnam, so I'm going to say either the late 50s and early 60s. Actually, I was in the 50s. And they used to have cigarette breaks all the time, and he used to smuggle little cigarettes back and take his extra breaks. And then one day, he still remembers waking up, and he had the lights flashing on him, and it was MPs just freaking hauling his ass off to the brig. Plus he got into a fight with the DI that night, so that probably most likely had a lot to do with it.
That might have had a little something to do with it.
Just a little. So he spent time in a brig and boot camp, so his boot camp was a lot longer than most.
Yeah, I could imagine. Look, Bob Seymour, we got our DIs right off the bus. I was in the last battalion to only do 8 weeks of training. It was condensed hell. LOL. Yeah, you could say LOL now, Bob, but I bet it wasn't LOL in those 8 weeks of hell. Now they're talking, 14 weeks of boot camp? I think it's 13 or 14 weeks now. So
I think it's 14.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, that'd be brutal.
You know, one of the other things I remember from being received is, you know, you go through, I think it's like 2 days before you actually get to be in squad bay and actually see a mirror and actually get an opportunity to get some sleep. It's like 2 days later, right? And of course, being the last name Brown, I had Firewatch the first night. I was like the third or fourth Firewatch right in the middle of the night. So, you know, just as you fall asleep, here comes, you know, it's Firewatch time. And so it's like, oh my God, I wake up and I'm walking back and forth in this new barracks, and the barracks faced the San Diego airport runway. So all I did was walk back and forth and watch these planes go, going, why the hell am I here?
Like, let me see. Can I make it over that Constantine fence?
Can I run over there? Are they really do something?
Did you notice that they had, like, I swear every single barracks there faced that runway. I think they had to have planned that.
Yeah, it was a sick joke.
It was a sick joke.
It was a sick joke, boy. Now we look back
and then,
it's funny.
And then remember, you know, going out on our PT runs and seeing the Navy boot camp across the fence doing their PT runs and us making fun of them.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I still say one thing. I think ITB was I think more harder than boot camp was.
ITB
only infantry school, so SOI. Yeah. So I think infantry that was the training only battalion. Thing, yeah, I think that was a lot harder, I think, than boot camp. But only good thing with that is we were allowed to leave sometimes.
You got to leave once in a while.
Yeah, that was brutal, boy.
I want to explain something. Brian, a little while back, you were describing, was it you or was it Rob, about a Marine who was dark green? Just so you all know, when you're being indoctrinated into the Marine Corps, you're all green. You're just different shades of green. So that's why when you hear us say dark green, it's just letting us know the difference of who we're relating to. It's just a description of the person that we were taught. That's the lingo that we used back when the three of us were in the Marines together. There was no, racism or racial negativity meant by that. It's just a description word. And if anybody's offended by it, we apologize, right, guys?
No, I apologize.
But
you didn't have time.
I'm both, so they didn't have a word for me, I guess.
Right. But
you didn't have time to be racist in boot camp.
Oh no. There was no such thing because you had to depend on that person next to you. So, you know, you care less who was with you, just as long as they held their weight.
Absolutely.
Dave Olson says, "Hey Dave, this is Dave from work. What's up, Dave? Good to see you, brother. Glad to see you're on watching the show." Yeah, man. So let's do this. Since we were all at 1-4, let's tell some 1-4 stories. Brian, why don't you tell us a good Libo story? Libo being liberty, time off, having fun, hanging out.
Hey, Brian, is the statute of limitations up yet?
Yes.
Yeah, thank God. Wow.
You stayed in trouble on Libo, dude. Monday was always interesting.
Mondays were always interesting, thanks to Brian. Hey, whatever we did, we just didn't have to do it as bad as Brian did.
Exactly.
Hey, man, you got to be good at something, so.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many stories. If you want to talk about our deployment, man, there's how many stories came out of Hawaii or Australia? I mean, good Lord.
Oh yeah.
And for anyone that hasn't been to Australia, let me explain this to you. There are a lot of bars and nightclubs. And, you know, seemed like every few doors down was another bar or a nightclub. And in between every bar and nightclub was an espresso shop, which I had never had espresso before. Now, they don't even really open up and get happening until 10 o'clock at night there. But it was a perfect setup because you could go into a bar, drink, leave that bar, go to the next bar, and on your way, you could slam about 5 shots of espresso. So not only were you shit-faced, but you were wide awake shit-faced. And, that just opened up even more opportunity to get in trouble. That was awesome.
I think they invented Red Bull.
Probably so.
Yeah, that was good old Australia, boy. That was the best time. Really good.
Bob Seymour, they gave us a carton of Marlboro in receiving, but we only smoked about 5 in the 8 weeks. Man, you must be old, Bob. Holy.
Dude, you ain't lying.
Dude, you must be really old. But thanks for being here. We appreciate you. One of my favorite.
Bob's a good friend of mine, and so I can honestly say that when Bob went through boot camp, they still had muzzle loaders.
Oh my God! Hey Bob, so do you know Dan Daly then?
So they still had muskets. Okay, you're
love you, fire. Bob.
While you're reloading, I'll fire.
Nice. Or were you there when they actually created the Marine Corps on November 10th, 1775? Bob said we had another guy named Private Love and one named General Peacock. And those two boys got majorly screwed with. But the guy with the same first, middle, and last name of the senior DI lived in hell for 8 weeks. Oh my God!
God!
I bet he did. Holy!
Oh my God! There's a boot camp nightmare. To this day, I have never watched the movie Dick Tracy. I had not seen it before I went to boot camp, and oh my God, I grew to despise that movie because they messed with me relentlessly. So yeah, I refuse to watch it.
I'm sure they did. Hey, anything that they could find, they would do that for you. We all know that. Funny story.
Funny thing. Oh, sorry.
We got picked up by our drill instructors. I had being Brown, obviously, it's a common last name. I had a recruit in my platoon. January 24th, 1989. I was with a hotel company, platoon 2014, and I had a dark green brother that had same last name, and he wasn't the smartest guy in the world. He didn't know his left from his right. He didn't know how to do things easily. That training, a leftover right, and that stuff didn't come too easy to him. So my drill instructors assigned him to me to help him get educated in the Marine Corps ways. So every time that he did something stupid, I got called to the front and to the classroom and got pushed for hours upon hours because my brother did something wrong. They'd be like, "Where's your brother at?" "Sir, here, sir." Yeah, I can laugh about it now, but back then, not so much.
No, that's hilarious.
We had one poor guy. He was, he wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He was constantly getting smoked by the drill instructors. And one day they took him in the duty hut. They had him in there for about 2 hours. We didn't know what they'd done to him. We didn't know if we'd ever see him again. And he finally comes out, goes back to his rack, and he's just sitting there acting normal. And pretty soon the drill instructors come out and they're walking around. They yell his name. He jumps to attention, and they just look at him and they say, "Hit it." And as soon as they said hit it, he starts humming the Twilight Zone theme song. That's what they had him doing in the duty hut for 2 hours, was teaching him the Twilight Zone theme song. So after they taught him that, every day, like 5 times a day, they'd yell at him, hit it, and he'd start doing the Twilight Zone theme song. It's like, oh my God.
It's so funny. Everything had a purpose, though. Like when you look back at it,
Yep.
Everything had a purpose the way they taught you. As much as we thought it was just outrageously dumb, like holding on to your cup and walking around saying "Gangway live grenade," you're holding it, a special way. And when we started throwing grenades, you're like, holy shit, because I'm holding it, I had to pull the pin and hold the safety, the spoon. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, everything that they taught us was for a reason, and and it now it makes sense, and it did later, but sure as hell didn't when we were going through it, right?
Hell no. Jesus.
So let's I want to get back to Australia for a little bit. How about them nightclubs? What was that one in Fremantle that was like 3 stories high and open in the middle? Remember that
God.
One? Oh yeah, I don't remember the names.
Yeah, I don't either.
I remember being at that one and being on the dance floor and some chick dancing with me, and a guy came up, wasn't mad at me, but was mad at her, grabbed her, and off the dance floor they went. A few minutes later, she comes back out and starts dancing with me again. She goes, "That's my husband." I'm like,
okay.
Out.
I don't want to have this going on my record here.
Don't want a record from being over there either.
Yeah, no lie. They sure as hell scared us the hell out of us when we ever reported.
Oh, yeah.
I think Singapore was the only sober place I was at because I was scared to freaking even spit on the floor. They want to get caned.
Oh,
you were sober in Singapore?
That's what I was just gonna say.
Come on, dude. I wasn't. Hey, no, like, come on, guys. Hey, my wife may be watching.
My wife may be watching. Hey, how you doing?
I'm just joking.
We're not going to tell any stories about Rob. Rob was a good guy. He never did anything wrong.
Yeah, I don't think none of us were sober at any ports, to be honest with you.
No, I remember Singapore when we first got to Singapore. I remember going to the Hard Rock Cafe and running into some of my Bravo company buddies and some of the recon guys that were on our ship. And we had the Singapore police escort us out about 4 hours after being at the Hard Rock Cafe. And that was the end of my night. I was already.
What about Moose McGillicuddy's in Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. That was a good place.
That was a good one. That was a good place.
And who were the 2 guys that ended up on top of the police van, and they were actually hiding from the police, and then they got a call and took off with the 2 guys on top?
Oh, I don't remember who that was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was one port I don't think we were sober at.
I'm not sure that was a good move.
They never got caught. It worked.
It was their Uber driver back then.
It was their Uber driver.
They got him closer to the ship.
Yeah. Hello. Uber
They didn't
driver.
realize it was going the wrong way.
Right. That's funny. We can recall some of those things that we did back then. Countries we've been to. What was that lieutenant's name, Brian? From
Which
Australia.
one?
The one that Gardner let me go after.
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, I can't think of his name. It skipped my brain. And then he showed up in formation the next day, and he had 2 black eyes. You remember that?
Was that? Oh shit, dude! It's on the top of my tongue.
Dolan, Lieutenant Dolan.
Dolan, there we go. Yeah, I think he was 3rd, right? 3rd or 2nd?
I think it was 3rd.
Because weapons platoon was Busby.
Yep.
Then ours was Gardner. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, second or third.
Yep.
I remember that one.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy was always on my butt about something. And man, I'm glad he let me put him in his place.
No, that's because Gardner was a Mustang, dude. I still to this day, that's probably the best lieutenant I ever had.
Hell yeah.
Mustang.
I agree.
And he was good, dude. He was good. We had some good leaders though.
Yeah, we did. We did have some great leaders. How about Staff Sergeant Fabini?
Oh, freaking Muppet.
You know, that's a story I was gonna tell. You remember when we were at Coronado doing the boat training, and I can't remember who the coxswain was, but we're cruising along, and Fabini fell out of the boat, and everyone's yelling at the coxswain. I think it was Robbins.
It was Robbins.
Yeah, I think it was.
And everyone's yelling at him, "Stop! Fabini fell out." And Robbins just keeps going, and we're like, "Stop!" He's like, "Why do I need to stop to pick up a beanie?" Not a beanie, Staff Sergeant Fabini.
Right. Staff Sergeant Fabini, not Fabini, not the beanie, dummy. Oh man, you know that's the one. Our buddy Dave Perez, who rest in peace. He could really, he could really get you to believe that Staff Sergeant was around the way he would say that. He could get you to turn your head, bam. You know,
he got me. I was doing fire watch one time, and he got me good. He was on the ship, and I think I was starting to doze off, dude. He got me good. Like, Williams. I was like, oh shit, that's Staff Sergeant fucking Perez is just cracking.
And it's Perez, and he's giggling with Ray. Him and Ray are over in the corner going.
I go, champion fucking Dave, man. You guys got me, boy.
Right? Those guys are always doing it. Always doing it.
Balls. I was like, God,
Dave should have been an actor. Dave should have been an actor because he could. Oh my God, he could pull some pranks, man.
Yeah, he was good. He was really good at what he did. Seriously,
do you remember Rose?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rose.
Little Rose.
You know, when Rose got to our platoon, Perez was at coxswain school, so he got back and God, his first night back, he ended up on fire watch somehow. I don't remember how that happened, but the only ones in the barracks is Perez, me, and Rose. And, you know, Perez is just giving Rose the evil eye. You know how Perez would do that, man. He'd just, you know, look at somebody. Rose is kind of freaking out, and he's like, who is he? I said, oh, that's Perez. He just got out of the brig. What was he in the brig for? I'm like, I don't know if I should tell you, man. He's like, well, is it bad? I said, well, you know, I don't want to freak you out or anything, but he's got this thing for, you know, really small, young looking guys. And I said, you know, he just got out of the brig for what he did to the last one we had. Now, Rose was, you know, he was tiny and he looked 10 years younger than he was. So he's just kind of freaking out, and he had the top bunk, and he's up there just watching every move that Perez made. And Perez heard me telling him. I mean, Perez was hiding around the corner, so he knew exactly what I told Rose. So Perez goes behind a wall locker and just sits there for a minute, and Rose can't see him, and he's getting nervous, and he starts looking around. You know, he's trying to figure out where Perez went, and then Perez snuck around and starts climbing up the end of Rose's bunk. I don't know how he did it, but Rose jumped off of that top bunk, had his boots on by the time he hit the floor, and was gone. He ran halfway across the parade deck, and me and Perez are just standing at the door, just dying laughing. And finally Rose, he gets like halfway across the parade deck, turns around, looks behind him, and sees us standing there laughing. He finally stops, and he just stared at us for a minute. Then he comes walking back and he's like, "Is this another one of those mess with the new guy things?" And I'm like, "Yeah, something like that."
Kind of like that. Kind of like that. Yeah, Rose, he's a little on the gullible side too, though. So,
Yeah.
Wonder whatever happened to him. I think he went.
I don't
back
know,
up
man.
north,
He was in my fire team. I haven't seen or heard from him, man.
So
yeah,
he went back up north in California. I think that's where he was from.
I remember when we were on deployment, he had some issues with his wife and their relationship. When we came back, they got back together. And then I don't know what happened after that.
I heard he re-enlisted, but I never
we all
could
left
find any
shortly
proof.
after that. So, I mean, I did, and so did you, Brian.
He went to we were at the boathouse together. He didn't re-enlist because I left.
No, he didn't re-enlist.
Or no, disregard. You know what? I don't know because I left before him.
Yeah, because he came in.
You know
after
what? I know. You remember Reed? I know Reed re-enlisted.
That's a shock.
You know what? I think Rose may have did re-enlist when we were on our second go around. I think he did re-enlist.
Wow.
If I remember right.
Do you remember when we tried to? You remember when we tried to stuff him in the wall locker?
Oh yeah.
He may have been little, but I tell you what, man, that guy could scrap.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
We never did. We never did get him in that wall locker.
Nope. Kicking, biting, fighting the whole way out.
Yeah, you guys are mean to us young guys. I just want to let
That's right. Hey, we had to police y'all.
Yeah, but look how you turned out, man.
Yeah, that's true too. But hey, I gotta get off of here. I gotta get my son to baseball.
All right,
brother. Seeing both of you guys. Yeah, I got my daddy duties. He got a big tournament tomorrow, so I gotta get him to baseball.
Word.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Word. Great chatting with you. Happy birthday again, brother. Happy Veterans Day.
Hey, you too, guys.
Semper Fi, Rob.
Semper Fi. Later.
Yeah, so those days are always good to talk about. I remember when we were getting ready to leave out of Long Beach, the last night of Libo before the ship was leaving.
Oh, Lord.
Doc Fletcher, Williams, and I. Were you with us too, Brian?
More than likely.
We went to some bar and grill kind of restaurant because they were having open mic night for comedians, and so we wanted to go check it out. Had dinner, had a few drinks, and
wasn't it Carlos Murphy's or Black Kings? I think it was Carlos Murphy's.
I think you're right. And this comedian, we'll call him a comedian just because that's what he was trying to do. The only thing that he had was making jokes about people who were in the military. And wrong venue, wrong place to do it at. So after all said and done, bar closes, we're outside, and he's still popping off. And so we decided to let him know what we thought of his show. And needless to say, we were worried about the ship going before the police showed up.
Yep.
So
yeah, I remember those days, and oh my God, it's funny now. You look at the lives we have, and then you look at how we were back then, and we're you and I are living proof that God really does look after fools. Because
oh yeah, that's true. That is very true. Because of all the foolish stuff we've done in our lives. I mean, what can you say that, we've had a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, why don't you tell us a story about what else can we talk about? That would be fun to talk about. How about we've talked about Wog Day before on the show.
How'd you do on the pugil sticks in boot camp?
Ooh, pugil sticks were a lot of fun. So when we got ready to do pugil sticks, our drill instructor, not my senior drill instructor, but one of was one of the senior drill instructors in our platoon. He was also the hand-to-hand combat person for the company. And so as we were getting ready to face another platoon in the bridge over troubled water, he just grabs me by my helmet and he says, this is what I want you to do. And they put me up against a guy who was probably, just because of height, probably outweighed me by about 30, 40 pounds. And he's like, all I want you to do is when they say go, you just, as hard as you can, jab that stick forward into his face and then butt stroke him right behind that, and he'll go falling. So they let us go. I hit him in the face, knocked him off a little balance, and came back with that butt stroke and laid him out. And I walked off there like, yeah, baby. So, and then it came to where the people who were undefeated would go together. And the last person that I had to go against was I lost to a guy who was a scab for the Cleveland Browns back in 1988 before I went to boot camp. Wow. Yep. So he's the one who knocked me off.
Wow. Yeah, my first one I went up against was dark green Marine. He was about probably 6'5", 6'6", and I'm thinking, oh my God, what I'm gonna die. This guy's huge, and
right.
He started walking out towards me, and he would take 2 steps and stop, and he'd look down both sides, look down at the water, and then he would look up and he'd take another 2 steps. He'd stop, look down, and I figured out that he was terrified of the water. So I'm like, wow, I can use this to my advantage. So we finally, he finally gets there where I am. We meet in the middle, and he kind of took a small swing at me, and he was so scared of falling off, falling in that water, that he almost lost his balance. So he pulls back and kind of steadies himself, and he starts to look down at the water. And as soon as he looked down at the water, I just came up and just nailed him right in the head, and off he went into the water. One shot, it was over. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, baby.
But I couldn't understand that, I mean, that water was 3 foot deep.
Yeah. But it wasn't that deep. It was just deep enough to scare people. That was about it.
Yeah.
I remember final phase of boot camp going through the obstacle course, and you do the rope slide where you're sliding across the rope over the water.
Slide for life.
Yeah, slide for life. And I remember one of my drill instructors standing on the end of that, trying to get my rope going so I'd fall off, because I was making it all the way. And of course, I'm get down to where I'm hanging by, just my grip, and I'm trying to fight my way back up. And right when I get my foot about ready to hook up, you just shake the rope again, and my foot would just miss it. And I did that for about a minute, and then I just couldn't hold on anymore, and I fell. But I just, you remember those things. Back then it sucked, but it was kind of funny when you're in the middle of hell, right? So, and I think that's part of, one of the things that when you're overseas too, when you're in a place like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, and you're with this group of Marines, you've learned to make it through some pretty extraordinary things and still be okay. And so when you do go to imminent danger place, you learn to coexist and bond with the people around you, that you have this tight group that you can laugh at stupid stuff like that. And even though you're in the middle of that kind of a crisis or any minute hell could break loose, right?
You remember what happened to me when we went to the leadership reaction course at Fort Ord?
Mm-mm.
We were doing I think they called that one the bridge over troubled water or something. It's where you you had, I believe it was either 2 or 3 pieces of plank and a piece of rope, and you had to make a bridge, go to the other side.
Oh yeah.
And I was the last one, just because of my size. And or no, I was the second to last one. I think it was McCormick was the last one. And I outweighed McCormick by probably 50 pounds. And I got almost to the other side, and I felt that plank starting to slip. And so I panicked and I jumped for it. And that was the dumbest thing I could have done. If I'd have just stayed steady, I would have been all right. But I jumped for it. And when I did, it kicked those planks out sideways, and I went down. And I landed on my hip on the edge of that pool. And if you remember right, the morning we did that, it was cold out. I mean, there was a real thin sheet of ice on the water, and man, that sucked.
That had to hurt like hell.
Oh, it hurt. And I remember I tried to stand up, and I don't know, I think it must have did some temporary nerve damage or something, but I couldn't stand up. And I remember Broadhead, and I don't remember who else, but everyone's dragging me out of the pool. And then they put me in the ambulance, the Humvee ambulance. Yep. And the first thing they did is, since the water was so cold, we got to treat you for hypothermia. You might be going in shock. And they had that heat cranked up to like 120 in there. I thought they were going to cook me.
Medium rare, please.
Then I had to go spend the day in the hospital and get x-rays and get checked out. And I had a hell of a bruise from that. But man, that's the kind of stuff that's why we're so jacked up today, is doing that kind of stuff.
Well, if you wanted to get out of training, I think there's easier ways to do it than that, Brian.
Oh man, I tell you what, man, that was not fun. I'd have much rather stayed and trained, but I remember everyone thanking me, because after that happened, they shut that one down. Nobody else had to do it after that.
Right. Talking about training brought up this memory that I have of Captain Dumont. We just got back from deployment, and we were doing a run, and we were running along. What's the name of that road that goes right through?
San Onofre Road.
Yeah, San Onofre Road that goes to San Onofre. And we were running to San Onofre, and and there was puddles in the low areas, and everybody was running around the water. Do you remember this? When he stopped us and yelled at us for being raiders and being afraid of the water. So then it went from like a 3-mile run to like a 14-mile run. He chewed us out. I remember that. Hey, if it ain't raining, we ain't training, damn it. Get your asses in the water.
That was actually, that was a pretty wicked run. If you took that high-low course all the way to San Onofre and back, I mean, that was 6 miles, and it was all just
beat the hell out of it.
And shit, we used to do that every day.
I know. I just can't believe that. I can barely run to the fridge.
I remember when I was in Delta Company, and we got Sergeant Castle, now Sergeant Major Castle, and he wanted to see what kind of shape we were in, and that was the first thing he did. Is he took off on a PFT pace on that high-low course, and I thought we were going to die. Oh, I thought we were all going to die.
Right. That's why I liked running with Lieutenant Gardner, because he didn't go that crazy. You know what I mean? He could run, but he wouldn't go out on one of those record paces, trying to get everybody to go 100 miles an hour. It was just a nice, easy run. Then you get Captain Dumont or somebody else up there, and it was like, I'm not a sprinter, man. You can't sprint for freaking 7 miles. Let's back this up a little bit. Plus, I was hungover probably too, so that probably had something to do with it.
What was the drunkest PFT you ever did?
Probably my last one. No, we were on ship for the last one. Probably my second to the last one. because
you're probably thinking of the one at Hawaii.
Yeah, that one.
Because I know I was still, wow, I was blitzed, and it turned out that was my best PFT ever.
Yeah, I actually ran pretty good on that one too. And I think it was because no pain, no gain. I couldn't feel that.
That might have had something to do with it.
Oh, talking about being blitzed. Let's talk about the softball tournament in Guam, where afterwards, because we won, then we went to the beach bars, and I proceeded to get to the point where I passed out in one of the booths. Woke up. Go ahead.
Do you remember the beach buckets of Long Island iced teas at that one bar? Oh my God.
That's what I'm talking about. And I
weren't those
out.
like 30? Those were like 32 ounces, weren't they?
Yep.
And I think I drank like, I was like 17 of them or something like that.
Yeah,
I could do that back then.
Right. I could too, which is sad to think about and talk about. But I mean, that was real. That's reality for now or for then. So, but that's what you did. You worked hard and you partied hard, right? That's what we did. That was our motto. So David Olson wants to know how many guys were on your team. On our fire team, we had 4. On our squad, we had
13.
And then our platoon, 50-ish, 50. Well, 4 times, 52, 53, 54, 55 with Lieutenant Gardner.
Yep.
So that makes about all of us, right?
Yep. Which we hardly ever had a full platoon. It seemed like we were always short.
Always losing people, coming and going. Yeah. Dave Olson says, I was a diet private, so I was, of course, used for demonstration. Ooh. Dave, I was a double rats private in boot camp, so I got to eat twice as much as everybody else did. Put on 28 pounds in boot camp, while everybody else that had to lose weight got to watch me fill my gourd every time we had a meal. I didn't know, but I was hungry as all get out.
I didn't know who I felt more sorry for, the double rats guys, because I mean they would, I remember those guys just getting screamed at, shove it down, or the diet privates, that got like 3 pieces of lettuce in a pickle, and they're just like starving to death. And I was weird because I only lost, my weight only changed 8 pounds in boot camp, but I was in pretty good shape when I went. The last job I had before I actually went to boot camp, all I did was stack 100-pound bags of potatoes all day for 12 hours a day. So I was in pretty good shape. So my weight, I changed proportion a little bit. I mean, kind of shifted my weight, but I only lost like 8 pounds in boot camp.
Yeah, I put on 28 pounds when I was in boot camp, being a double rats private.
Wow.
And that was all muscle. So, I mean, but you saw what happened when how much we had to eat. So, I mean, they slopped it on there, double what everybody else got. And we only had 5 minutes, if that, to eat once your butt hit the floor, hit the seat. So I wonder why I eat so fast today, and those kinds of things. But that has a lot to do with it, because scarfing that kind of food down, man, in that short period of time.
Yeah, for people that are watching and don't understand that terminology, a double rats private is someone that they consider underweight. So they literally make you eat twice the normal amount of food that they give everyone else. And then a diet private is someone they considered overweight. So I don't even think they got half the food that the rest of us got.
Nope. And so, this was back when we were doing this. It was before, nutrition was a thing, but it wasn't what it is today with the way that diets are. They just figured you will just stop you from eating instead of putting the right food in front of you. They just gave you less amount to eat, which probably did more damage than good because they put their body into starvation. If we think about it today, with stuff that we know now. But anyways,
yeah.
So the other embarrassing thing, though, is that a double rats private could coexist with the rest of the platoon. If you weren't losing weight fast enough, they took you out of your platoon and they put you in another platoon with a whole bunch of other people that couldn't make weight. And they called you something for that. Fat body platoon or pork chop platoon.
Which technically it was the PCP platoon, the physical conditioning platoon.
Right.
And everyone just we all called it the pork chop platoon. So
right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Well, we're coming to the end of the first hour of the show today. We're going to go another hour today just because it's Veterans Day. And this first hour, we are putting in work and putting our time in with veterans, celebrating the Marine Corps birthday. All you out there, I don't care what you got, grab a little something. I want to say cheers to the Marine Corps 246th birthday, Semper Fidelis, and let's pay homage to the Marine Corps. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
All right. Now we're going to move into the next segment of the show where we're going to be talking to veterans that we know, some of the other people that we have in our lives that have served in other branches of the military. We're going to start with bringing on Brett. Brett, you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome.
How's it going, Brett?
Excellent. Hey, Brian.
Brett is our Air Force representative today and longtime friend of the channel. And good to see you, Brett. How's things in South Dakota?
Things are going different than I expected, but when one opportunity goes away, another one reappears. So it's now chasing a different building. I was up here to buy a hotel, didn't come through. They sold it for twice as much as I was willing to pay for it. So
wow.
Now I'm looking at something else.
Buying a hotel.
Yeah, I want to buy a hotel because I want to create a leadership and spiritual life retreat here in Hot Springs so that we can bring corporate leaders, veterans. This is a veterans town. There is a VA hospital as well as a veterans home here in Hot Springs, and it was built around the mineral waters, hot spring mineral waters here that the indigenous Native Americans found first, and then the military realized that if they brought people here that were sick and they drank the water and sat in the water, and hopefully they didn't drink the water they just sat in, but they ended up healing miraculously when they weren't able to heal them with medicine at that time.
Okay, that's cool. So what I'm going to ask of you, Brett, is can you tell us a little history about when your branch of service started? First, tell us the branch. Tell us what your years were of service, and then tell us a little history about your branch of service.
Oh, that I can get the first part. The history is going to be a challenge. So I started in the Air Force in 1984, and I went there right after college, and started off as like a trainee for being a navigator. And then I didn't want to fly, but as it is with military, your recruiters have quotas they have to reach. So they're going to put you wherever that's going to help them to fill their quotas. So that's how I ended up first getting into navigator training, and figured out how to finally get out of it. Thank God, because I couldn't tell my right from my left. Never have been able to do that. We can go into some stories about that. But I did time in Okinawa. I was in Korea. So I was in Okinawa with the Marines. I was in Korea with the Army. And then I spent 9 years at the Pentagon when I went from active duty into the reserves. So had kind of a span there. And actually the last 3 years I finished out at Nellis Air Force Base in Vegas, which is pretty cool. Okay. So that's kind of quick history for me. And then, I went in as an officer and retired. Luckily, they didn't kick me out before I actually retired. Retired as a major. And other than that, the Air Force, I can't remember, when I was in officer training school, I refused to learn the Air Force song. So I still can't tell you, I cannot sing that song. I was like, this is like a fraternity. And I don't know. I know we get a chance to use F words on the other show, but I'm not sure on this one. So
go for it.
This is a veteran
anyhow,
show.
I was like, fuck that. I'm not in a fraternity. I'm not going to learn the goddamn song just because you're telling me to learn the song. Yes, everybody else around knew it, but I never did. And then, like history, it was either 1950, I think it was 1957 that the Air Force was formed out of the Army Air Corps. And it's grown tremendously, as everybody knows. Now we got Space Command. We got all these other kind of commands that are in there. But ultimately, the way I looked at it is, our job was to fly together for those that flew. I was logistics or basically, supplying and other services. And was the first job that I had was putting equipment on C-5 aircraft. And for those who may remember the C-5, that's the one that you could open the nose of the plane and the tail of the plane and drive through it. And we could put M1 tanks on it. We could put the body of a C-130 inside the hull of a C-5, and we did that. It was pretty amazing watching those types of things happen. But it was a pretty amazing time. I loved working with the Marines when I was in Okinawa, because in Okinawa, I was responsible for the air operation of deploying people off of the island by air. And that would mean if the Marines had to deploy quickly, they would come through my operation. And the one thing that I always knew is that if I needed to get shit done, all I had to do was find the gunny. And the gunny got shit done. When I was in the Air Force and I had issues, I could go to the colonel and shit still wouldn't get done. But the gunny got stuff done. So I really appreciate working with the Marines.
Yeah, gunny, you probably didn't even have to go to the gunny to get shit done. You could have did the staff sergeant, but yeah, for sure, gunny, for sure. They make the lieutenants and captains and everybody else look good.
Absolutely.
So I'm just still baffled by what you said earlier, that they let you become an officer even though you didn't know your left from your right.
I was in officer training school, and you either have to march, right? And sometimes you got to carry the guidon or the flag in front of the column, right?
Right.
So when they're calling out column right and I'm in front, so I have nobody to follow, I went left.
Oh,
and the rest of the column went right. Now
that's awesome.
That's an embarrassing moment, but worse than that is when I was a squadron commander commanding the squadron and marching, I said column right and I turned left. So
that's awesome.
And it's the same way even today. When I was in flight training, I wrote left and right on my gloves so that I thought that would help, except I used to point to my right and tell the pilot to go left, and he's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, just follow where I'm pointing, because what I'm saying, I have no freaking idea. So I was glad to get out of nav training, put it that way. It's probably the safest thing that the military has ever done, is to get me out of the cockpit.
It saved us from dying. So you were responsible for all the K loaders and all that stuff, getting stuff on the planes.
Absolutely, planes
forklifts.
and the packs. So all the troops, everybody that was flying out. So that was a part of it. When I was in Korea, I was responsible for all the vehicles the Air Force had on the peninsula.
Yep.
So there, I worked real closely with the Army, and it I love working with the different services. I never really worked much with the Navy, but I grew up next to Great Lakes Naval Training Base.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out I never wanted to go into the Navy because of that.
Better watch it. There's a guy coming on here in a few minutes that's from the Navy.
You know, and it's always a great place to be from, right?
All right. Well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to introduce somebody else here. I'm going to bring on Erin. She is a Army and National Guard veteran. Erin, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can. How you doing tonight?
Awesome. I'm doing all right. I got a little bit of a cold, so I apologize for the quality of my voice.
Well, you can do it. You know, you're one of those Army gals. You can get it done, right?
Definitely.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, wow, that's a big question. So I joined the National Guard back in '97. I was a poor college student and working several jobs to try to make ends meet. And I got this flyer in the mail that said, IN ARNG opportunities, $18 an hour part-time. And that was a lot of money. And I didn't have any idea what that meant. But then when I called, it was a recruiter, and he said he could give me college money. So that was that carrot that was dangled, and it worked. Which is funny because my parents were not excited about that, about their daughter going into the military. They're very much hippies, and much to their dismay, I'm the conservative one. But yeah, so I joined as a medic. It was 91 Bravo at the time, and now it's 68 Whiskey. But I worked as a medic and then a flight medic for probably the first 10 years in aviation. And then I went active duty guard. So that's the people who work there full time during the week. And I did that I started off at medical readiness for an infantry brigade combat team, and then I moved to be a readiness NCO at a line unit for medics, and that's basically the person who does all the day-to-day in charge when you don't have a commander and first sergeant who are there every day. So I'll take care of all of that. And then I went to go be the NCOIC at a Mystic, which is a medical simulation training center. And then I spent some time as a life fit instructor. So I know you guys were talking earlier about when you had your heavier guys or the people who struggled making height, weight, and PT. We had a whole program that we designed from the ground up, dedicated for people for retention purposes, trying to get them back on track. And I worked on that project for about a year and a half, and then moved on to human resources world for a little while just to get promoted. In the National Guard, you're working against slots there, and I was E7 at the time, and there were no E8 68 Whiskey slots available in the state to get promoted. And I've been an E7 for 9 years, so it was kind of time to move on. So I went into the 42 Alpha world, which is human resources, and that's where I kind of finished out my enlisted time. So yeah, I went. I did that for I've been in 24 years now, and I resigned active duty about a year and a half ago for a civilian position that I absolutely love. I work for Eli Lilly now, which is a pharmaceutical company here in Indianapolis doing leadership development. And I'm still in the National Guard. I went to the other side. I took my direct commission to be an officer, and I am now a medical platoon leader, an evac leader, platoon leader in Johnson County, Indiana. So that's a little bit about my background.
So when you say slots, you're talking about bullets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just want to make sure we're talking about the same language or the same, so we all have an idea what it is. Mm-hmm. So you were saying that you are still active in the National Guard. Is that in a reserve component now?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm a traditional guardsman, so the 1 week in a month, and the 15-day AT period. So that's what I do now.
Okay.
Well, I might retire. I'm looking at retiring actually this next year, even though I just took my commission. But 25 years is a long time. Really starting to focus on the next part of my life.
What do you know about the history of the Air National Guard?
Well, I don't know about the Air National Guard because I'm Army National Guard.
Oh,
but
excuse me, Army National Guard. I said Air. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
That's okay. We're a joint force here in Indiana, but I don't really know a lot about the air side. But so the National Guard itself is started back in like the 1600s, and it was really just made to defend the colonies against the Indians and against the other foreign nations that might come in and try to take over in Massachusetts area. That's kind of where everything started. And then it just kind of grew over time, and they realized that this was a great force that they could start adding more people to these militias. And then somewhere around the 1700s, they made some acts where the president could call up the militias to help federal type initiatives. And then they started calling it the National Guard around that time. And then eventually it came to what it is today, is to where our primary mission is to be a ready support to any kind of federal mission, to support wars, to support national disasters, to support any kind of civil disarray within the United States, and anything that should come up that they might need us for.
So does that include terrorists that are foreign or domestic?
Yes, foreign and domestic. Yeah, we say the same. We have the same requirements as far as our physical fitness, as far as our weapons qualifications, and all the classes that regular active duty does. But we do it like the 1 week in a month and weeks of the summer. So it's cram packed the time that we have to do these things, because we have to live by those same standards that they have all year to do. And not to mention, everybody has another job. So you have teachers, you have construction workers, you have all sorts of the span of all these different work and life things that kind of fly into that.
That work and life stuff kind of gets in the way, doesn't it?
It does. I think it was really hard for me going traditional after being full-time for so long. Part of the reason why I probably want to retire now, because it's not the same. When I was full-time, I was really into it. It was my life. And I absolutely love the people. It was a family to me, and they still are. But now we have social media and other ways of staying involved. So
yeah, it's amazing. If they would have had this back when Brian, you and I, or even Brett, when we were in, to be able to communicate and stay in touch with family and friends, might have been a different story for how long you stay in and those types of things too. With email and Facebook and Instagram and all the other video programs like we're doing here, where we can talk face to face and be able to communicate with each other and catch up. So it's pretty awesome. What's one of the things that you credit most about your person, who you are today, to the Army National Guard?
I think the part that I credit the most is that I developed a sense of resilience in all of this. I'm a single parent. I've been a single parent most of my career. My kids grew up. I have two daughters that are teenagers now, and they grew up, running around the armory floor or sleeping on a litter in my office. When they had to be, called in sick because I still had to go to work. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned is, I've had to go to a lot of schools. I've had to be away from my family. I've had to, everybody has, it's just one of those things, but trying to do it alone makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, especially when you're alone. Yeah, especially when you're raising kids, makes it really difficult. So, tell me about your weekend duty. Where are you stationed for that nowadays?
I'm at Johnson County Armory in Franklin, Indiana. That's where I go right now with the 215th Medical Company Area Support. We had drill just last weekend, which is I think why I'm sick. We were out on the range. I was at OIC for a 0 range all 3 days. So we've had some cold weather, but typically, our drills will revolve around doing medical training. We do a lot of, inventories, and we do a lot of the normal classes that people have to do. We still have to do the ACFT, which is the new Army Combat Fit Test, which is kind of new this year, last year. So there's a lot of things that we have to stuff into those weekends.
Oh yeah. I've been asking everybody. I want a funny story that you can share. You can use colorful language. It's okay. But one of the funniest stories of the time that you've been in.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I think medics have kind of a weird sense of humor, a dark humor, if you will. So, we like to do funny things. Like we'll do, nasal pharyngeals on people for fun. We do IVs on people for fun. Somebody's got a hangover, they come to us because we've got the good juice to kind of to fix everybody up. We would just do funny things like, if somebody's passed out, like putting the mannequin in bed with them so they're all cuddled up to them and taking pictures, and then of course posting on social media because that's what we do now, right? So that's probably along the lines of a normal AT of something that we would do that would be funny.
Thank God they didn't have social media and stuff.
It's a very different world now.
Cell phones. Oh my gosh, I'd be in trouble.
Oh man,
I'd be in trouble. Brian, Brett, you can chime in here. I'm just saying, I'd be in trouble.
I'm gonna plead the fifth.
As long as we don't make the Army what the fuck moments, there's actually a Facebook page called Army WTF. So we try to stay away from that as much as possible.
So when you make that page, what happens?
Usually it comes back. Okay, there's a picture of somebody. The Indiana National Guard has made that page a few times.
Nice.
But it never looks pretty for public affairs.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not, because then they're trying to make up some kind of story or history or why it happened, and then Private so-and-so or Sergeant so-and-so got told not to do it again.
Yes.
So, but those are the funniest ones, though, aren't they? Really? The ones that get stuck on pages like that?
Oh, yeah. We had
on YouTube. They should come up with silliest military memes or something like that we could watch. I think we should do a show on that. That'd be freaking hilarious with today's technology that people are doing. So
I got one. How about Saturday mornings in the first sergeant's office?
Oh, hey, we should have a camera in the first sergeant's office for those of us that come in on Saturday morning.
I hated those
that
mornings.
Was back a long time ago. So, are you able to stick around for a little while, Aaron, or you got to go?
Yeah, I can stick around for a while. I don't know what other topics you have, but I do know. What's that?
I said we're just going to be chatting. I'm going to bring in a guy here. His name's Brian, a buddy of mine that I've known for years. He served in the Navy and retired from the Navy. So I just wanted to have another branch of service covered in this conversation. So I was just going to bring him on so he can quit sitting in his garage and listen in and participate. So let's see if you ready, Brian?
Yeah.
There he is. Hey, Brian. How you doing, buddy?
Brian.
Hey, Brian.
It's about damn time.
Brian?
It's about damn time. See, this is the kind of friendship I have with Brian.
This is what happens when you bring the dirty sailor in.
Yep, that's right. The dirty sailor. All right, Brian, tell us years of service, boot camp, where you went. Talk a little bit about yourself and your service.
Okay, first of all, thanks, Dave, for the invite. I appreciate it. And thank all of you for serving with all of us here and doing what we do. It doesn't go unnoticed by folks like myself and many other folks around the globe in the country. Anyway, my name is Brian Evavold. I live currently in Woodbridge, Virginia, just south of D.C. Retired Navy after 25 years, both enlisted and officer side. I'll do my rundown on Navy history here real quick. If you didn't know, the Navy was born on October 13th, 1775. Let's see what else. We still have the undefeated ship Champion, harbored up in Boston. You know, good old Ironsides is still there, kicking around, our oldest commissioned ship. What else? There's some other I'm pretty sure. Sorry, I'm looking at my wall like it's got stuff up there, but it doesn't. So. We've the Navy's been around a long time, just like the Marine Corps and everything else. There's so much history. It's like, where do you start? I told Dave I had one little fun fact that probably a lot of people don't know, and I'll just bring that up. It's about aircraft carriers, and not all of them in general, about two in particular. Back in the day when they were building the USS Kitty Hawk class carriers here in Norfolk, I believe, side by side, USS Kitty Hawk keel was laid, was being built right next door. In the next stall, if you will, USS Constellation was being built. Obviously, the Kitty Hawk was the first one, so it was ahead. They had a fire that took out a lot of the construction that they were doing, and it put the ship behind. So Constellation got ahead in production and development and being built in front of the Kitty Hawk. So what do you do when that happens, when it's a Kitty Hawk class ship? Well, when this one finishes, you slap the name on the back of it that says Kitty Hawk instead of Constellation like it was supposed to be. So the fun part about that is that the back of the ship, where they weld the name and they put the hull numbers on the deck and on the side of the island and everything like that, those were all correct. But if you go down into the bowels of the ship and you find those actual ribs that are the actual bottom hull of that ship, those were all welded with the name of the boat. So if you go down into the bowels of the Connie, which I don't know if it's around, neither one of them are around anymore, and I don't know if they've totally recycled them or not. But either one you go into, it's got the hull numbers for Kitty Hawk, this, that, and the other. But if you go into the bottom of the ship, it says USS Constellation on those bottom ribs, and vice versa for the other.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So there's a little fun fact of history for aircraft carrier stuff.
That's a fun fact.
That's pretty cool.
Anyway, I'm surprised. I mean, it's a cool fact to know, and just weird things. I mean, like another stupid thing, how do you tell the difference between a ship and a boat?
How?
Which way it leans when it turns. Speedboats and everything and submarines, they all lean in when they turn. Big giant Navy ships lean out when they turn. Anyway,
that makes sense.
There's some fun facts. I guess about myself, I joined the Navy in 1993. Went to college for a couple of years. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Spinning my wheels. Walked into the Navy recruiting office. Everybody had their feet up on the desks. They were all like, "Oh shit, somebody actually walked in here. Let's get this guy." So long story short, I went in basically undesignated, which means I didn't have a specific job that I was supposed to do. So I went in as your basic deck seaman. Jack of all trades, master of none. That's what we called it. Because when you got to your first ship, I went to boot camp in Orlando right before they closed down in '93, and did my seaman school there, and then got sent to from there, I was supposed to go to a ship in Italy, and I gave those orders up to go to Fort Bliss to learn how to shoot Stinger missiles. Because we were going to be a debt that went, at the time, they would debt you out of Bahrain, and you would go on to ships that were going in and out of the Gulf. And, be there in case you had to shoot something down coming from Iran or whatever else. So that was 3-4 weeks out of my life in Fort Bliss. Got to learn how to shoot Stinger missiles. Got to walk across the border to Juarez, which was great. I highly recommend it. But but they did away with the program, so we actually never went to Bahrain. So they sent me and 5 of my buddies from that class to the USS Mississippi, which was a nuclear class cruiser at the time. The Navy built the nuclear cruisers to be able to go with the nuke carriers and not have to worry about fuel. If you had to, where the crisis was, you had to point the ship in the direction and go. The cruiser was nuclear powered, so it didn't have to worry about gas to get there, and it was basically the radar and the eyes and the ears for the carrier. they found out that they cost too much to refuel, because you literally had to cut the entire main deck and above off, lift it off, and pull the cores out to recore the ship to be able to get it to live longer and keep going, and it just cost too much money, so they did away with them. But that was my first ship, and
you don't have any problems from that nuclear exposure, do you?
What's that?
You don't have any problems from that nuclear exposure, do you?
I don't, because I was never really close enough to the cores. The insulation, if you will, or where the cores were from where I worked, I was a topsider. I was a deck 8 basically. So driving the ship, line handling, anything that went on main deck and above was our responsibility. I found out I didn't like that job. And as a matter of fact, I worked with a bunch of idiots and I hated it. I'm sure you can all attest to that at some point in your career. We were basically the knuckle draggers of the ship, and it was like it sucked. But so I kind of complained and bitched a little bit in my early career. My mother wrote a letter to Dave Dernberger back in Minnesota to try and say that my contract was breached and to try and get me out. It didn't work. So I ended up talking to the CO of my ship and telling him, kind of the same thing. And he looked me dead in the face. He said, "You find a job you want to do, and I'll make sure you do it." And so I kind of fell into we had one E6 on board who was our intel guy. And I started following him around and talking to him and seeing what he did for a while, the Navy intel guy. And I was like, you know what? This seems really cool. I want to do that. So I wrote another chit, went all the way up to the skipper and said, "Here you go, sir. This is what I want to do."
Where'd you go, Bri? You there, bud?
And to his word, that man, did you lose me?
Just for a sec.
Hold on.
You're good now.
Okay. Anyway, I went back to see the skipper, and he had the personnel guys get me orders to intel school, basically, from the enlisted side. But I had to stay on the ship for another 18 months before I could go to school. So I had to be there for a total of 2 years so they could actually replace me instead of just being a loss. And so he looked at me and said, "Well, here's your orders to intel school. Do you think you can stay here for another 18 months and hack this out?" And I was like, "Well, we'll see. I'm going to have to do it." So long story short, I did. Made through a deployment, our first deployment there, went to intel school, became a intelligence specialist for the Navy from the enlisted side. My first job out of there was with an F-18 squadron out in Cecil Field in Florida, just outside of Jacksonville. We were on the Kennedy, did a cruise there. Then I actually went to U.S. Space Command in NORAD in Colorado Springs and was stationed there for 4 years inside the mountain. Mm-hmm. So that was a good tour. That was the tour that made me decide that I wanted to stay and do this for the long term. Whether it be enlisted or officer, it didn't matter. But I was there for 9/11, which was very interesting. It's a really creative environment to be in when those kinds of things are going on. From there, I went to 3rd Fleet in San Diego, worked for the 3-star on his intel team, and then actually was his personal duty driver for 8 months out of my life there. Then from there, I applied for my officer program, and I got picked up. They call it the Seaman to Admiral program. In my case, it was the Seaman to Lieutenant program, or Seaman to Captain program for all of you guys. So, I got into that, got picked up for it, basically went to some training stuff out here in Rhode Island, went back to school in San Diego for 3 years and finished my degree and came out with an ensign tattoo and did the last 10 years here in DC as an intel officer, working at a lot of the agencies here, Office of Naval Intelligence, NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. I did my sea tour from here, was able to deploy on the Stennis for a couple of years there, and retired out of here, and I've been contracting kind of with the Navy in the same type of world that I did here ever since. So that's me. Sorry, it was a little longer than it should have been, but.
Well, we all know veterans can talk, right? So it's not surprising at all.
Wait, let me put my suppression juice in.
Okay, there we go. Suppression juice. I was blessed. My buddy Brian, he actually stopped by and saw me a couple of weeks ago when he was in town, and dropped off a head cover for a golf club. So I wanted to have him on too, just because I respect his service. I respect him as a brother. I respect him as a close friend. So one of the things.
And I've known his wife longer than I've known him.
Yes, he has. He went to high school. Holy, did you go to junior high with her too, or just high school?
Just high school.
Yep. So yeah, so he's known her. Oh my God. Is it
since '88?
Yeah. So that's just a few years. That's just a few years.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to talk about is we've all talked about our service. We all talked about our branch of service, and we can get into a whole show about making fun of each other's branch and why we joined the service and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But one of the things I want to talk about, and Aaron brought this up in private chat, is I want to talk about the real topic that on Veterans Day, as we roll into the holidays and stuff like that we were really struggling with is veteran suicide and post-traumatic stress and that type of stuff. So I want to start with Aaron. Aaron, I want to let you have the floor for a minute and have you talk about PTSD, TBIs, those types of things, and where we're at.
Definitely. One of my additional duties in the National Guard is a suicide prevention officer. And, I can tell you right now, I'm in double digits of people that I know personally who have completed suicide. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people in that same mindset. And I had, most memorably, I had a soldier who was in my platoon when I was platoon sergeant. And he asked if we could go talk. So we went in my office and shut the door. And he told me earlier that weekend he had a gun in his mouth. And the only thing that kept him from pulling the trigger was because he didn't know what would happen to his kids. And so it's very real, very real to me that people get the care that they need. And sometimes the VA isn't always the best option, especially when you're looking at people who are still in and may not use the VA yet. So just having those resources and destigmatizing it. I know something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, the Warrior Women. They're actually a non-for-profit organization that is doing, actually this week, they're doing a ruck march actually from southern Indiana to central Indiana, 110 miles in the pouring rain today. And they're still walking. But what that does is they're to raise awareness and raise funds, and they send soldiers, that money goes to send soldiers to places like the Brian Bill Foundation, where they have equine therapy and meditation and couples therapy for people who struggle with PTSD and things like that, and TBI. They've helped out with HVAF, which is a homeless veterans situation here in Indiana, to help people get back on their feet and get jobs. So I always tell people, if they want to support veterans, that's really one of the biggest ways is help find programs like this to help get them help and have them be able to attend those kinds of programs.
Yeah, and that's important, is number one, letting them know that you're there and you hear them. Number two is giving them something to either give them purpose or a reason to not be successful, and then to give them some outlets for that as well. Well, I'm sure we all could talk about people we've known or who we know that struggle with PTSD or military sexual trauma or TBIs, and how messed up their lives are. And it's one train wreck after another. And we could spend years talking about this topic, really. But what I want to know from each of you is, how do you on a daily basis get up and face your demons? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump on the grenade.
All right.
And I'll do it because I think I consider myself lucky. I mean, again, I'm in the Navy, on the ship, off the shore, right? Not my boots aren't in the dirt every day. And then being an intel guy, I'm definitely in the rear with the gear, right? So being in the back and not being shot at per se. I mean, the ship could get shot at. We didn't ever, but things happen, right? And things will happen in the future that we don't want to deal with, and that are going, anyway, that's a whole different war with a different twist. But I think personally, even though that I never sat, getting shot at or any of that kind of stuff, it's a different mentality for sure when you go back and you're not doing it anymore. Whether you were, again, behind the trigger and all this intense stuff or not, it doesn't really matter. When lifestyle changes like that after 25 years of your life, and you're not yet 50, so it's been, over half your life, it's tough. I guess, you find the good things. You find things like this. You find some social media things, like, for example, Dave and I getting back in touch kind of because of Facebook and everything else.
Yep.
And just things like that, small things. The small things are kind of what, I guess, for me anyway, it's not a hard thing to get out of bed. Some days it is, maybe, but it's not horrible. And like I say, the small things. It's the small things, the family, the wife, the dogs, the this, that, the other. It's realizing what you have and what's going on around you, and it's gonna be going on all day or all week or whatever. That's what you focus on, I guess. So good, bad, or other, I guess that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, it's finding the positivity in what you have, right? And
what's up?
It's finding the positivity in all that you have and all that's around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, again, I consider myself lucky and blessed. I don't have a lot of hope, demons just dancing on my brain, but there's a few here and there for certain things, or just in general, you just get down on things because it's a different lifestyle, and maybe you don't like your new job, or you're between jobs or whatever. I mean, it is what it is, and you kind of just press on, and I guess that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for those 2 cents. I'll rub those pennies together.
Yeah,
I'm here for you if you ever need me, brother.
Oh, absolutely.
Who's next? Come on, Aaron.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
I think, like Brian, I haven't been shot at personally. As a medic, I've seen some things, obviously, motor vehicle accidents. I've seen somebody who was shot on a range, dealt with, various traumatic injuries. But really what gets me through, like when things are stressful, physical fitness has always been a big part of my life. It still is. I like to run. That's kind of my own therapy. It's cheaper than therapy. Another part of that is my faith and just having a good base. But I think what's important for a lot of people, especially to Brian's point, when they retire, because that's where a lot of problems start to arise, is finding that sense of purpose outside of the military and realizing that you were still worth it and you were still worthy and you still have so much to offer to the world. Besides what you did in the service. And that, I think, is hard for some people. So find whatever that passion is for you and then pursue that.
Yep. Yeah, that's the big thing, is finding that purpose again. Because when you are in the military and you are serving, you have that purpose is there every day. You know what your purpose is. You know what you're there to do. And then you get out into a world that plays by a different rules or understands things differently than you do, and you're like, quit whining. What are you pissing, moaning about? You know, it's just a different lifestyle. It's a different way of life, and being able to assimilate to the new younger people and what they think of work or what they complain about. It's like, oh my God, shut out of my face, you know, kind of thing, or those types of things. And you get frustrated and but you still got to find that positive purpose and finding something that you can really dig yourself into that really brings you joy. I know Brian, one of the things that brings him joy is he plays a lot of golf. I know he probably won't admit it right now, but oh yeah, he will. There they are. Those are some sexy pants.
Nice. These are knickers, Dave. They're knickers.
Nice. Those are pretty sexy.
I can send you the picture if you want.
Oh yeah, please post that on Facebook, would you?
I did. I did from earlier today.
Oh, I haven't been on there yet, so I'm gonna have to check it out after I get done with this tonight.
It's there.
All right, I'll have to do that.
The typical leggy is there.
All right, Brett, you've been pretty quiet back there. We haven't heard much from you in the last half hour. What's your perspective on the mental health crisis that we are seeing in veterans and service members?
You know, I was lucky that I wasn't in the line of fire or anything like that. You know, for me, one of the things that was most important when I was in Okinawa, I had to in Desert Storm, I had to select. We didn't have like packages or squadrons that we would send. We actually selected by AFSC or by skill set who we were going to send over to fill deployment requirements. So I had to select by individual, 12 people. That's all we ended up having to be tasked for at the time, but to select them and to send them over to the desert, which at the time we didn't have enough guns in the Air Force. Can't imagine that, that we could actually deploy my guys with guns. They were like, no, just deploy them. The Army will give them guns when they get over there. I'm like, fuck that. The Army is going to be giving guns to their guys. My guys aren't going to be getting the guns when they go over there. So I get them prepared to go over. And the one thing that I did, which was different and everybody enjoyed or liked about what I did, is I brought everybody's family into a conference room together and talked about the environment that they were going over to. I talked about the culture they were going to be going into and giving them some cultural understanding of what it would be like to go over to Saudi Arabia. And that way there was a shared experience between the families and the military member that was being deployed. And they really appreciated that because it gave them something up front to give them a common understanding or experience, at least to begin with. Those guys came back and they were definitely different, even though most of them were stationed like over in Riyadh where the Scuds were being dropped and so forth. And they said the Scuds weren't that accurate. Well, they were more accurate than they let on to believe. And I knew a couple of my guys were there and one guy blown back into the building because a Scud blew up, outside of the passenger terminal in Riyadh. So they came back different, and I've had two of my friends die from things that I would definitely attribute to what we were doing or what we were bringing back. One guy in particular, I think he died because he was dealing with our own chemicals, benzene and things like that he had to package up and send back. And then he got some kind of weird blood disease that the VA never really wanted to admit was associated with his service. And he ended up dying because his platelets went to zero. So basically just a bump could bleed him out internally. And he was able to survive until his youngest daughter graduated high school. And shortly after that, he died. And I have another one who ended up with cancer. He was my NCOIC when I was in Okinawa. And he was the one that I deployed and got blown back into the building. And I'm like, I attribute his cancer probably to something that he encountered while he was over there. So I had those kinds of experience, but not specifically myself. Now what I do, after getting out of active duty in 1992, I did a lot of work with Tony Robbins stuff. And first it was tapes. I mean, cassette tapes. I'm old. That would be the kind of era I was in. And then I went to, in 2006, the first live event, and then went through all of Tony Robbins training, including leadership training and so forth, so that I could gain the knowledge to be able to help people through challenges. And now I do leadership programs to try to help people better understand themselves, because the first team that we have to lead is me, myself, and I. And everybody is a leader because you first have to lead yourself. And that's what one of the challenges are. You know, you come out of the military, and usually, even though we all might compete, we all work together. And we all know that in our unit, even though we may have differences in opinions, we usually can anticipate or know that the other person is going to help to make sure the ball doesn't hit the ground. When you go into the civilian world, that's a whole different story. And I experienced it firsthand myself. I saw a lieutenant colonel, Army lieutenant colonel, just get his ass ripped by like the 22-year-old people that were in logistics, and just were like, you know, we're going to basically show that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And he got his ass ripped because he was expecting them to try and do whatever was necessary to get the job done, to get the mission done. But in the civilian world, oftentimes it's, I'm going to make sure that I can do whatever I need to in order to get promoted at the expense of whomever I have to step on. And that's a totally different kind of an environment that I've experienced when I went out into the civilian world and logistics. So now I work with people to try to help them to work through and better understand themselves, their natural energies and geniuses, to better understand why they also respond in different ways, or feel frustrated when they're doing certain things, but feel energized when they're doing others. And those are the types of things that I think are important. And I don't think that the VA works that well with people that do have PTSD, because oftentimes they go through traditional psychological type training of talk therapy, which to me just allows somebody to drill that same story deeper and deeper into their soul. And what we need to do is we need to break the cycle. We need to break that cycle and get them out of that story and moving in another direction. I've had girlfriends that I took to therapy because they had challenges of PTSD from previous relationships. And they had the same thing. I just went in with the psychologist, and they're like, tell me your story. And the next week we'd go in and they'd allow them to tell the story again and again and again. And finally I talked to the psychologist. I'm like, why do you do that? We need to break a pattern, not drive it deeper into their soul. And I think that that's oftentimes what's happening in more traditional therapies that are being used for our troops with PTSD. So I agree with Aaron that I think that there's better ways, there's other places to go, and opportunities to be able to address some of the challenges that we may have.
So Tony Robbins was inspiration for you, and his programs gave you purpose and that kind of stuff to drill down in yourself and bring out your purpose and what you wanted to do and how you wanted to help other people and do that. I think one of the biggest things that we miss when we come out of the service is, and a lot of people don't understand it or may not be able to wrap their hands around it, is our service, is that we are of service and that we're serving people. And so when we come out, if we don't have that purpose of serving somebody else or protecting somebody else, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to live life. We don't know how to make decisions. We don't know how to do this type of stuff, because that's what we've been doing for how many years, whatever you've been in. And so it's that purpose, and living for that purpose is what drives people to happiness. A lot of people can argue with me about, no, money's happiness, being married's happiness. I don't know anybody else who's on here who can tell me that marriage is always happiness, because it's not. That dream died years ago. It's a work. It's two people working to stay together. And it's a lot of work, because I have the stuff I want to do. She's got the stuff she wants to do. And we got to meet somewhere in the middle. So But it's serving somebody, and that's what's given me the most purpose. This show gives me purpose because I can get on and talk to people and try to get the word out and help people and still have a little fun doing it. And I get to talk to some friends from all over the country. Hey, what a job. What a great time, right? So, that's kind of fun to do too. And we're all veterans. We've all had an opportunity. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up from that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is you were talking about, you aged yourself about having to watch these things on tapes. Now, you said it was cassette, but are you sure it was cassette and it wasn't 8-track tapes? I just want to make sure.
I was looking at
that white beard. I just want to make sure.
I had my sticks and albums. I had albums, and then I had 8-track tapes, and then the cassette tapes. So yeah, I've been through all of those. I even have some 78 speed records, so that takes you back even further to the old Victrolas.
There you go. Hey, I even know what 8-track tapes are, so you got to give me something for that. Come on.
Absolutely.
So, Brian, you haven't said much. What's going on with you, brother? What's your feedback on what's going on with the mental health and stuff today? Not Brian Evavold, the other one.
Kind of like you said, we have a purpose in the military, and then when you get out, some guys are smart enough or fortunate enough to have a specific career they want to go into, and they do that. And then there's others of us that, we're just kind of lost for a while, trying to figure out what we want to do when we grow up. And there's a lot of us, it takes forever to grow up. But that the best advice I can give is you've got to find a purpose, and doesn't matter what it is. It could be, your purpose might be dedicated to a church or a certain career or whatever, but you've got to have something to keep your focus on. And if you don't have that, and you are struggling with PTSD, you've got entirely too much free time to let the demons talk and be fighting with those demons. And, if you can keep your mind occupied and focused with something, that seems to help a lot. And, I recommend everyone, even if it's, just a hobby, playing golf, whatever, find a purpose in life. And the biggest thing is that I have discovered is that when you're trying to help someone else, you think a lot less about your own problems. So put yourself out there. If you think you've got it rough, go find someone that's got it rougher and then try and help them.
Well, and I think I love that, and what that does is it helps you too, because it puts that perspective on there, right? My problems aren't so bad, or you get to share with that person then, and that's another release for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win on both sides. So.
Yep, I agree.
Just talking to anybody. About some random person you meet or an old friend you meet somewhere, and whatever.
Yeah.
Talking, not so much this thing. I'm guilty of it right now. I've had it in my hand here, but just this, and actually face to face, even the Skyping or whatever like this is even better than just nose down, just constantly texting and not actually hearing a voice.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's that interaction. It's that human piece to it that really helps. Yeah.
And I would be willing to bet that a lot of us, even here, we might know it. I know I have it. I have, since I've retired even, you have a routine still, right? You try and stick to something that's that you know, and even if it's a weekly routine, like every Friday you do this, or every Wednesday, you know, like my dogs go to day camp every Wednesday and every Friday, so I know that, and so I got to get up a little bit earlier to get them to the little day kennel thing, and then to work, and yada yada yada, you know. And then every Friday I go and have a couple of beers with the guys at the brewery that's right across from where I work, and then I come home. You know, it's just those structured things kind of help keep you grounded and just, you know, an outlet. You know, you talk to different folks and you're just talking. You're not talking about work. You're talking about what they do. And these guys might not even be, most of the guys I talk to, for example, on a Friday afternoon at the brewery, they're not even military guys. Half of them are the guys that work there at the brewery, and they love smoking weed and, you know, doing everything else that they can do legally now and everything else. And we just have a good time, have a few beers and just shoot the shit, talk about what they're brewing next month, and, you know, go home and it's good. It's just a release. It's just something different. So, you know, change the mindset, you know. And like Dave said, you know, I'm a big golfer. I was golfing today with a buddy of mine who's Air Force retired. And similar to what you said, Aaron, there's been a couple of times where he's told me that he's had his little play gun in his hand. And, you know, we've had those conversations, and he's good. We're good. Family's good. His family's good. He's got 3 kids. His oldest son's in an ROTC program at the University of West Virginia, you know, trying to fly planes for the Air Force and everything like that. So, you know, it's those little outlets. And, you know, we get on the golf course and we make fun of each other. And we tell the dirty jokes, and we tell all that shit that, you know, normal civilian folks don't want to hear. But, you know, again, you get that release. You still have some of it, I guess, so to speak, but, you know, we're all out there in the real world, if you will. So
right,
it is what it is.
And I think here's another piece of it too, is it's science too. I mean, most of us went into the military very close out of high school, 17, 18, 19 years old. And
sure.
It's been proven that a man's frontal lobe isn't fully developed until he's in his mid to late 20s. So,
I'd like to push that back to mid 50s.
I was going to bring something up about that.
I'm 59. I haven't developed yet.
I was going to say that's the normal person who didn't join the military is by the mid to late 20s. Those of us that have joined the military, it's extended a little bit because of the stuff that we go through and do.
It gets buried with us.
The dumb stuff. But the science is there too, that's, you know, that's real about mood. So you haven't fully developed that frontal lobe and how to deal with all of those things. And then it is that time's extended because have this, and it is a trauma, really. It's a trauma when they reprogram you in boot camp and stuff. It's a traumatic experience for you. And now you have, and if you have experienced any other trauma along that time, whether it's in a combat zone, or have you seen somebody get seriously hurt or killed or you know, commit suicide or any of those things that happen, you carry that piece with you moving on, but you still haven't learned the tools of how to handle it. And so when you come out of the military and you come home, especially in my era, we didn't get any transition time. You signed out of the Marine Corps, and that day you caught a plane and you went home. And it didn't matter what was wrong with you. That's just how it was. And you came home and it was done, right? And so you went from carrying an M16A2 service rifle with a 9mm sidearm and one day, and the next day you're walking down the street in Minneapolis. Just try and have somebody rationalize that at 22, 23 years old and how that changes your life. Just that circumstance by itself. And then you add into all these other factors of your frontal lobe's not fully developed. You've had all these experiences. No wonder why you've been trained to snap off in, you know, a short period of time when it comes to fight or flight. And you're going to stick around and you're going to fight for your country, or what are you going to do? You know, these types of responses are what's prevalent, what you've been trained. And so when you come home and they want you to assimilate to society, try to assimilate to society. Society doesn't want to know what we do. They want us to assimilate to what the country is, because they don't want to have to look at the ugliness of what happens in a Marine Corps unit or in an infantry unit or in combat. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. Sure, we have cameras, and sure, they have news stories, and they have all this and that and the other thing, but it's not the same. They just want to avoid that so that they don't have to prove that life is that ugly for veterans. And Absolutely. The statistic of, what is it? Less than 3% of the population has ever served in the military. So less than 3%, we got 350 million people in the United States right now. Less than 3% of that is how many people? That's less than 3 million. So we have less than 3 million people who have served or are serving in the military right now in a country like that. But we have a suicide rate of 22 veterans a day are killing themselves on average. And with COVID, that's worse. What are we doing as a country to take care of those people that stood up and answered the call, whether they wanted to or whether they were forced to because they were drafted? What are we doing to help them move forward?
Well, I think another big part of that is the stigma. I mean, it's still there because somebody, especially people who are still serving, are afraid to get that in your pool. He's your psychological, that the S part, you're changing that so that you can't carry a weapon now and people know that about you, or that you have to go seek behavioral health. But it's crazy to me, as a medic, that people will come see me because they have a hangover or a blister on their foot, but they don't want to come see help for the things that are broken up here, and the things that are injured up here. And we need to look at it as the same way.
It's changing the mindset of being able to do that. I know. When we were,
I met a Vietnam veteran 2 weeks ago in Michigan. He was in Vietnam in 1969. He did not even know he could get help from the VA until 2014. And just 2 years ago, he finally got in and started seeing a counselor for PTSD. So he's been dealing with that since 1969 until now. And that, to me, that should not happen. That's...
Nope.
No.
Absolutely. That's yeah. I don't know. I like to push a lot of, I don't know. There's a lot of social media things out there. There's a lot of people that are doing some good things to try and raise awareness. I mean, I'd like to think they're all doing good. I'm sure that some of them aren't. They're just out there to make money. They're doing things to push their own agenda and yada, yada, yada. Dave, the band I gave you, hopefully you went and looked at that website and see what they do a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a new one, so I'm good. And I have more over here I can send to somebody if they want. But I like to think that place is doing some good stuff. I mean, they sell T-shirts and do all that stuff, but they also put together plaques for families that are, have a service member that died in combat or died by their own hand or whatever. And they send these things out and they post them on their site too. Like, hey, we pushed out this many plaques to families this day, whatever. Dave's got the name of the site. It's the Tell Valhalla Project is the name of it, if you want to Google it. I've kind of narrowed any of the T-shirts and all that kind of junk, if you want to call it, that I'm going to buy to them. Like, I've given up on some other ones that seem like they're a little more mainstream and a little political. I don't want to get onto the political side of it. I just want to deal with, like Dave said, and like we've all said, what's going to help the veterans and what's going to help the people. I don't give a shit what the hill 20 miles to the north of me does, because they're all screwed anyway, both sides. So that's a whole other fight for another day. But anyway, just, find something and I guess, get behind it a little bit and advertise for it to help at least, push some of those things out. But like you said, the not knowing that the VA is there for you for that long is a horrible thing. That should never have happened. I mean, I guess I've even since I retired in 2018, there's been guys that call me back to NGA or to other places, and they're like, hey, how did you do this stuff with the VA, and what did you do here, and what did you do there? And I just tell them, like, go over to the office and talk to the guys. Well, what did you have to have in line, and what did you have to bring with them, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, send them an email, call them, talk to them. They're right there. They're one guy in an office sitting there with a computer, and he's willing and ready to talk to anybody. And it was a VFW rep, actually, that over here at Fort Belvoir, the Army base, that helped me get in touch with the VA and, do my claim, for retirement and all that kind of stuff. And I just happened to find out about it because luckily, went through a TAPS class and knew those kinds of, or they put that kind of information out there, and he was in the same building that this class was going on. And a lot of people don't get that. But even just, getting out there to people that are about to get out or have just gotten out, that, these things are all out there. Like, my wife retired from the reserve side, and she never had an outgoing class. She did 22 years of active and reserve time. And when she retired, like you guys said, it was like, thanks, see ya, here's your DD-214, goodbye. There was no, this is your reserve benefits. This is, what you have claim to as a, as a reservist for, any of that stuff. None of it, until I was going through it. And I told her, I was like, you need to, dig up your medical records and do this kind of stuff and see if there's anything there that, that is claimable or that's something that you need to get in there for.
Right.
So, and I think that's being in that relationship. I've learned that from the reserve side, and Aaron, you probably see this a lot, that's the part that everybody forgets about. Again, you show up on a reserve weekend, it's your last weekend, they hand you your DD-214, you get on your plane or you get in your car and you go back home, and that's it.
Yeah, you're relying.
My time is done. I'm done.
You're relying on your unit to tell you about like retirement classes and things like that. I'm actually going to one next month, but if I didn't ask for it, I don't know that it would ever have been given to me as an option.
Yeah, and the other thing too this is a personal grunt that I disagree with the military, is they have two separate classes, right? They have TAP class, Transition Assistance Program, for everybody 03 and below. Well, 03 and below minus E9s. And so then there's another senior course for 05 and above that includes the E9s, because they think that those guys are more of the retirees and they're doing all this other stuff. So the classes are tailored different, which I think is bullshit. Because, I retired as an 03 lieutenant in the Navy, but I did 25 years in the Navy. When I sat through my TAP class, I was the only guy that was retiring out of that class of 25 people. Everybody else was just getting out of the Army or getting out of the Navy. And so they tailored the class differently. And I kind of stood up and I'm like, unfortunately, I had already done a lot of my VA stuff and this, that, and the other thing. So when they stood up in the front, I'm like, there's a guy right down the hall that you can talk to about VA benefits, and he's really good. And this, that, and the other thing. And they went, oh, you've already done all that? I'm like, yeah, because I'm retiring and this is supposed to be my class, but this is all for just people getting out, and so that's one thing that pissed me off, is that, I'm 45 years old at that time, retiring out of the Navy after 25 years, and I had to sit through a class of a guy that's been in for 4 years, and I get the same information as him. That's fucked up.
Yeah, you're put in the same bucket because of the device you wear on your collar.
Right. And so I sat through it and whatever, but I did my own digging. Fortunately, I had enough. I had gone through it 2 years earlier, knowing that I was going to retire. So I kind of sat through the TAP class before as a practice run. So the second time through, I know to dig through it. I'm like, no, that's crap. I need to go over here and talk to these folks about that. So, but a lot of folks don't know that, and the information is just not there, and they don't even know that they can do that twice.
Right.
If you're at your 18-year, your 20-year point or whatever, and you're going to retire in a couple of years, go sit through the class. Get some of that information. And then 2 years later, when you're about to actually do it, go through it again.
Yeah.
So,
well, here's the other thing too, is you get a lot of these guys like myself who I didn't do 20 years in the service. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so when I got out, it was all about just getting the hell away. And,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't want to talk to anybody about anything until it became important that I did because of.
And that was about what, 15 years later?
Yeah. Yeah.
10 years later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's the same thing when people come back from deployment. When they originally come back from deployment, they're just so happy to be home and see their family. You have that honeymoon period of where everything is great and perfect until it isn't. And then they start drinking too much, or they start using recreational pharmaceuticals that are not allowed, or whatever it is to numb it, to get to some sort of sense of normalcy.
Right.
And then they realize they have a problem, but they're already, at least for the guard side, they're probably already off orders, probably already off active duty. And then they're trying to figure out what do I do now? How do I get help?
Right.
And that's even, I mean, that's got to even be a worse transition because it's automatic, right? You come home from deployment and 2 weeks later, you're back sitting at your desk. You know,
yeah, I mean, they could.
Selling cars or doing whatever. It's, that I can't even imagine.
Back at their civilian job. So, one day you're out, in Afghanistan holding a rifle, and then, literally 2 months later, you're in front of a classroom teaching, middle school students. So,
Yep.
I think a worst case scenario there.
Well, I'm sure there's probably a lot that are worse, but I'm sure that one has happened plenty.
Yeah, I'm sure it does too.
Well, that's I think one of the biggest challenges is that you can't create a vacuum and not expect something to fill it. The problem is we're not getting in a transition program that fills it with something that moves us in a direction, a positive way. It fills it with something else. So when you get out and you're just on the street, or you're trying to figure stuff out for yourself, or you're talking to somebody who doesn't know shit about what you've been through or what is available to you, that vacuum gets filled with false ideas, with the idea that there is nothing available. It's going to get filled. It's one of those things where, and I've said this about the Marines oftentimes, because the Marines have this a mission that is super intense, and I'm not saying that other services don't, but they teach you how to turn it on. They don't teach you how to turn it off. And you've got to learn how to turn it off. They've got to give us training on how to turn it off, how to fill that void with something that's positive, and get us started on the right foot, or on the left foot, because we always start on the right foot. Try to do something that's different so that we can now move into a totally different environment that we've lived in. And, I was 8 years active duty before I went in the reserves. Well, actually, I got out and then they recruited me back in the reserves. But I thought it was going to be an easy transition after just 9 years. And I looked at the military and the Air Force as being the most corporate of the services, if you want to look at it from that perspective. And yet, 9 months afterwards, I'm like, shit, this is not the easiest transition in the world. It is not what I expected it would be. But that was my mindset when I went in. And that's when I was really starting to get into the Tony Robbins stuff and trying to fill my void with something that was going to be of my choice and in a positive direction, rather than just allowing shit to come into my life that I may not have the filters to choose at that point in time what it was that I was letting in.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Even it's been interesting enough, just the weird transitions, like for myself, that I've done from sitting in uniform and then still contracting for the government, right? I mean, all the jobs that I've done are still working with the Navy, and actually with a lot of the same people, civilian-wise, that I knew right before, my last couple of tours before I got out, which is probably why I got the jobs and got referenced for these jobs and everything like that. When that goes away entirely, it's going to be a little bit different as well. I mean, it's a different transition to still, now I wear a, polo shirt and khakis instead of a, BDU shirt and whatever. But when all of that goes away and it's a completely different job, or whatever. It's going to be a little bit different too. I mean, for myself, I guess it was a transition, but I'm not that far from it yet. And especially, I mean, in DC, you fall right into it. You can get a job with your buddies, tomorrow after you retire. If you had the reputation and the job is there and there's a spot available, they're like, oh yeah, he'll fit in that spot great. You just put different clothes on and you go to work, kind of doing the same stuff. And so it's going to be interesting in the next few years for myself, or even within the next year, even next few months maybe, to see how that transition happens. So it's a constantly evolving thing, I think, and just on different levels of it. Getting out of uniform is one thing, and then stop working for the government is another. Oh, I don't have a clearance anymore, this, that, and the other. And then, oh, I'm just a regular Joe civilian like everybody else now. That there's steps, and it's just weird, to think about. And again, I'm still going through them myself. So we'll see what happens.
Let me be the first to tell you that you're not a regular Joe civilian.
But Brian, I feel like there's still always ways you can stay connected, whether that is supporting an organization like I do with the Warrior 110, or like you would with the Till Valhalla. There, you can support an organization, you can share it on one, you can work at your local VSO or volunteer. There's so many options to kind of stay connected to that world if you choose to do so. And I think that could be a good way for people to still feel like they're part of that mission and that game, and just reaching out to your veteran friends and talking.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, because it just reignited that in my head. I mean, I know that in the back of my head, I guess, somewhere, but it's the constant reminder every once in a while is good. The boot kick to the head is good.
And you need that once in a while. So do I. Well, I'm going to say that we've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm going to give you each an opportunity to go on your platform, spend a couple minutes, talk about what you wanted to say and didn't get to say on the show yet. And then I'm going to say goodbye and move on. So I'm going to start with Brett. Then we're going to do Brian Tracy. Then we're going to do Brian Evelvold. And then we're going to end with Aaron. And then I'll end up the rest of it. So let's hear what you got to say, Brett.
Well, one of the fun facts that I think that we don't hear about all the time is, the B-52 was actually commissioned in 1952, which actually, as opposed to what I said for the Air Force starting in 1957, was at 1947. But the B-52, otherwise known as the Big Ugly Fat Fucker, the Buff, was commissioned in 1952, and it's not expected to go out of commission until after 2050 now. It's going to have over 100 years in service, which I think is amazing that this platform can live on the same way. As a veteran, we too continue to live on throughout the rest of our life with our experience as a veteran, and we need to look at those experiences and what we've learned from them and take those positives and bring them into the future, and recognize that there were some things that were traumatic for sure, but there's opportunities to learn from those and to share with others so that maybe they don't have to go through those same steps like we were just talking about in the transition or whatever. But, to be able to help others to fill the void with some knowledge that we gained from our experience as a veteran. And that keeps us engaged, and we're never going to lose that experience that we had. So, live on like the B-52, recognize that we are, as you mentioned, a service-oriented. Most of us grew up in this environment, literally grew up as in the service world. And I hate the term servant leadership. I think that's bullshit. I think it's serving leadership. We are serving others. We are not the servant of others. We are serving others. So continue to serve in any way that you you can. And everybody knows something better than somebody else. It's just a matter of really being able to bring that out and not to be afraid to step out in an area that you may not feel comfortable with at this time. But guess what? When we left the military and stepped in the civilian world, it was not the same as it was when we were in. So you did step into that world and that situation before. So just do it again and fill yourself with what can positively support you, and recognize that even in traumatic experiences, there's lessons to be learned that we can share with others to help them through.
Thanks, Brett. Let's go to Brian. Brian, what you got for us?
Well, first of all, I want to tell all my Marine brothers out there happy birthday again, and all my fellow veterans, happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. And reach out. We in the military, we had our battle buddies, and we need to keep that up today with social media and everything. Reach out to your friends, make sure they're okay, and just look for opportunities to try and help somebody. You never know, the smallest thing you may do that you don't even think about doing may affect someone's life. And so make sure you're always trying to do positive things. And like I said, just watch out for each other, check on your buddies, and let's make sure everyone is okay every day.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Evavold, what you got?
I like what Brian just said. The double check and checking on everybody. And I don't know. I don't think there was anything left unsaid that I didn't voice or answer or whatever. I mean, like I say, I could ramble for days, but we all got other things to do and people to go talk to and people to help and do whatever. I appreciate this, Dave. And me, I'm only a phone call away, a text message away or whatever. And anything you need, if you need this again, with any of you guys, just let me know. I'm here. Like I say, I'll talk somebody's ear off. I'll go shoot golf balls at somebody. I'll, throw darts at their feet, or, crack a beer, or, pour apple crown over their head, whatever they need me to do. So, no, I just appreciate it. It's been a good day. Like I say, as far as Veterans Days go, for me, this is probably one of the best ones that I've had in a long time. So it's good. I had a great day of golf today, came home and knew that this was going to happen. And, wife and I got dinner in beforehand, and I came out here and turned on, and here we are. So hopefully seeing some of the comments scroll through here on the bottom of people listening. So that's kind of good. Everybody, so many dirty jokes, saying whatever. And anyway, no, I appreciate it, Dave. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks for coming, Brian.
Yep.
Aaron, what you got for us?
I think I just want to, Brian Michael in the chat asked a question, what can we do for you guys? And I kind of want to address that from a couple of different angles. If you really want to help a vet out, if it's somebody who's still serving, maybe it's, volunteering to watch their dog when they have to go to work or drill over weekend, or mowing their lawn, if they're going to be gone for an extended period of time. Just those little things mean so much. If you're looking at trying to help a veteran out who's out, it's maybe going and having dinner with them and talking to them and just being a listening ear, or maybe it's donating to a charity or organization of your choice that helps veterans to keep going forward or get treatment. So those are all ways that we can help, but really just keeping the awareness up there, and just knowing that we are all like one big family, and we are all, it takes a village really to get through all this together, this crazy life that we have, no matter where we end up. So just be kind.
Be kind. That's a good one. Thanks, Aaron. Well, in summary for me, it's been a great show. We've had some great conversation. We celebrated the Marine Corps' 246th birthday. We've got some other branches represented here in conversation. And I believe we had a great conversation about mental health and crisis and things. And I just want to thank you guys for taking the time on Veterans Day and spending it with me on the show. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate your friendships. I appreciate being able to communicate and stay in touch with you guys. You don't know how much that means to me on a personal level, but it's awesome to be able to reach out and talk to you guys, and I really appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to thank Brandon Croucher and Delight CBD for sponsoring our channel on YouTube. It's Delight Digital Cafe and
Delight's Digital Cafe.
Delight's Digital Cafe, and then also their product, Delight CBD. I have used it. It does work for me. It helps me with calming down the nerves some days and the anxiety. So it definitely works for me.
Different companies, same thing.
I can't put a different company there. Sponsored by this one.
I know. I'm just saying. For the rest of the folks out there, that the benefits are there.
Yep, the benefits are there. They work, and
absolutely.
I just want you guys to know that I really do appreciate you taking the time. Especially we've been going on for quite a bit of time this evening, and again, want to say happy birthday to my Marine brothers and sisters, and I want to say happy Veterans Day to all the veterans. And good night, y'all. Thank you for joining our show, and God bless. Peace. See y'all.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.